The smell of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon usually filled their home with warmth, a testament to a love story everyone envied. But on this morning, the aroma became a suffocating cloud of betrayal. She had spent hours preparing his favorite breakfast, a special celebration for their unborn child. But when she presented it, his words didn't just break her heart, they shattered her entire reality. He looked at the feast she'd made his face, a mask of cold indifference, and said, "I'm taking this to my real family." She was left standing alone, the plates growing cold in a life that was suddenly a lie. Sarah traced the rim of the porcelain plate with her thumb, a nervous habit she'd developed over the past few weeks. The plate was part of the expensive Villeroy and Bosch set they'd received as a wedding gift from Mark's parents, Eleanor and Robert Landon. It was the Odin collection, with charming pastoral scenes etched in black and white, bordered by a pale yellow band. Sarah had always loved them, feeling they represented a timeless, elegant life, the kind of life she thought she was building. Today was supposed to be one of those timeless, elegant moments. At 8 weeks pregnant, she had finally blessedly crossed the threshold into the second trimester. The relentless nausea that had been her constant companion for weeks had finally receded, leaving behind a fragile sense of hope and a returning appetite. To celebrate, she had woken at dawn, creeping out of their king-sized bed, while Mark was still a motionless lump under the fret linens. She was determined to surprise him with the kind of breakfast he adored, the kind he'd call a Landon special, a nod to his family name and his hearty appetite. The kitchen of their sprawling suburban home in Charlotte, North Carolina, was her sanctuary. Sunlight streamed through the large bay window, illuminating the white marble countertops and the gleaming stainless steel appliances. It was the dream kitchen she and Mark had designed together, piece by piece, after they'd bought the house. She remembered debating for weeks over the exact shade of gray for the shaker cabinets and the type of farmhouse sink. He'd indulged her every whim, saying, "Whatever makes my girl happy. This is our forever home." Those words echoed in her mind, now sweet and painful. On the 6-burner Wolf Range, thick-cut applewood smoked bacon sizzled in a cast-iron skillet, its rich aroma mingling with the sweet scent of the blueberry pancakes stacked high on a warming plate. The blueberries were from the farmer's market she visited every Saturday, a small ritual she cherished. She'd even squeezed fresh orange juice, just the way he liked it, pulpy and bright, and the Sub-Zero refrigerator was humming quietly, stocked with all his favorite things. The coffee maker gurgled its final fragrant drops of the expensive single-origin beans he insisted on. She arranged everything. On a large wooden tray, the pancakes, a small pitcher of warm Vermont maple syrup, the crispy bacon, a bowl of mixed berries, and his favorite mug, a hefty ceramic one she'd had custom-made that said, "World's Best Husband." A small single yellow rose in a bud vase completed the picture, yellow for friendship and joy, a silent nod to the foundation of their relationship. Theirs was a love story after all. College sweethearts who had weathered finals first jobs and the long, agonizing journey of trying to conceive. This baby, this tiny flutter of life inside her, was their miracle. It was the culmination of 2 years of heartache, of ovulation charts, temperature readings, and more than one devastatingly negative pregnancy test that had left her weeping in his arms. He had always been so strong for her, so supportive. "It'll happen when it's meant to happen, Sarah," he'd murmur, stroking her hair. "We're a team." "Mark, honey, are you up?" she called out, her voice bright with an excitement she could barely contain. She heard the shower turn off upstairs in their ensuite bathroom, followed by the muffled sounds of him getting dressed. He was an investment banker, a senior vice president at one of Charlotte's most prestigious firms, and a man of unshakable routine. Wake up at 600 a.m., shower by 6:05, dressed and reviewing market reports on his phone by 6:30, and out the door by 7:00 a.m. sharp. But today, she hoped her grand gesture would persuade him to linger to sit with her at the breakfast nook, to share this happy milestone with her as a team. When he came down the stairs, he looked impeccable as always. His dark hair was perfectly combed, still slightly damp, and his custom-tailored navy suit fit him like a second skin. But there was a strange tension in his shoulders, a tightness around his jaw that she hadn't noticed before. He barely glanced at her, his eyes fixed on his phone as he scrolled through emails, his thumb moving in swift, decisive swipes. Morning, he grunted, bypassing the kitchen island where the tray was beautifully displayed and heading straight for the coffee maker. "Good morning, Sarah," said, her smile faltering slightly. He hadn't even looked at the tray. I made you breakfast. To celebrate." She gestured towards her creation, her heart doing a nervous little flip. "We're officially in the second trimester. No more morning sickness. I feel human again." Mark finally looked up from his phone, his blue eyes the same startling blue that had made her heart skip a beat when she first saw him across a crowded lecture hall, briefly scanning the elaborate spread. For a fleeting moment, she thought she saw a flicker of something in his expression, surprise, guilt, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a cool, detached look she didn't recognize. It was his work face, the one he used for tough negotiations. He'd never used it on her before. "I don't have time for this, Sarah," he said, his voice flat and devoid of warmth. He poured coffee into his sleek silver travel mug, his back to her. A knot of disappointment tightened in her stomach. "Oh, well, you could at least have a pancake. I made them from scratch, with the good blueberries." He turned around, then leaning against the counter, and the look on his face sent a chill down her spine. It was a look of utter indifference, almost bordering on annoyance. "I said I don't have time. Mark, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "Did something happen at work? You seem stressed." He sighed, a long, weary sound, as if her question was an immense burden. He pushed off the counter and walked over to the island, but not to take a plate. Instead, he opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of Tupperware containers. With a swift, methodical efficiency that was unnerving, he began to pack the food she had made. He slid the stack of pancakes into the largest container, arranged the bacon neatly in another, and filled a third with the mixed berries. He even poured the fresh orange juice she'd squeezed into a thermos. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, her voice a small whisper. Her dream moment was curdling before her eyes. "I don't understand." He didn't answer at first, just continued his task, his movements precise and impersonal. When he was done, he placed all the containers into a large insulated bag she recognized as the one they used for picnics. Picnics they hadn't been on in a very long time. "Mark, what is going on?" she asked again, her voice trembling now, the first prickle of real fear rising in her chest. "I made this for us." He finally met her gaze, his blue eyes as cold and hard as sapphires. The words he spoke next would echo in her mind for years to come, the cruelest, most devastating blow she had ever received. They were delivered not in anger, but with a chilling, matter-of-fact finality. "It looks delicious, Sarah." "Thank you," he said, his tone devoid of any emotion. I'm taking it to my real family. The words hung in the air between them, thick and suffocating. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Her hand flew to her still flat stomach, a protective instinct she hadn't even known she possessed. Your real family, she repeated the words, tasting like ash in her mouth. What are you talking about? We are your family. This baby, I am your family. Mark zipped up the insulated bag and slung it over his shoulder. He picked up his briefcase, his phone, and his travel mug ready to leave. He looked at her then, at her tear-filled eyes and her shocked expression, and for the first time that morning, a flicker of emotion crossed his face. It wasn't love or remorse, it was pity, a cold, dismissive pity that was more insulting than any anger could have been. I have to go, he said simply, and turned and walked out the door, the sound of it clicking shut, echoing in the cavernous kitchen. He left Sarah standing alone in their dream house, the scent of the breakfast she had so lovingly prepared, now a sickening reminder of her shattered reality. The single yellow rose on the tray seemed to mock her, its vibrant color a stark contrast to the gray emptiness that had just enveloped her world. She was pregnant alone and married to a man who had just revealed he was living a complete and utter lie. The perfect life she thought she had was nothing but a fragile illusion, and it had just been broken into a million pieces. She sank to the floor, the cold Italian tiles a stark contrast to the burning pain in her chest, and a single guttural sob escaped her lips. The sound was swallowed by the cavernous silence of the house, the first note in a symphony of grief and betrayal that was only just beginning. Time lost all meaning as Sarah remained crumpled on the cold kitchen floor. The sun climbed higher in the sky, its cheerful rays now feeling like an intrusion, a mocking spotlight on her desolation. The breakfast on the counter grew cold, the bacon congealing, the pancakes turning rubbery. Her sob had subsided into a series of shuddering, silent breaths. Her mind was a maelstrom of confusion, denial, and a pain so profound it felt physical, as if a vital organ had been ripped from her body. My real family. The phrase played on a loop, each repetition a fresh stab to her heart. What could it possibly mean? Was this some kind of cruel, twisted joke? A passive-aggressive jab because she'd been so sick the last few weeks? Had she done something to make him this angry? Her mind desperately scrabbled for a rational explanation. Maybe he meant his parents. No, his tone was wrong. He would have said, I'm taking some to my mum and dad. This was different. This was deliberate. This was cruel. A flash of memory last Christmas, Mark's best friend Mike had joked after a few too many glasses of scotch, Mark, you're living the dream, man. The dream. At the time, she'd thought he meant their beautiful house, their seemingly perfect marriage. Now the words had a sinister, new meaning. Slowly, shakily, she pushed herself up her joints, aching. The house, their house, felt vast, an alien, each familiar object now seeming like a prop in a play she had unknowingly been starring in. Her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator was a stranger's, a pale, hollow-eyed woman with tear tracks staining her cheeks. Her first instinct was to call him, to scream, to cry, to demand an explanation. She fumbled for her phone on the counter and dialed his number. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. The person you are calling is not available. Please leave a message. She tried again and again, voicemail every time. He had turned his phone off or was rejecting her calls. The realization was another small cut. He didn't want to be reached. He was with his real family. A new feeling began to seep through the shock, something cold and sharp, suspicion. All the little oddities from the past few months, the things she had dismissed as stress from his demanding job, now resurfaced with menacing clarity. The late nights at the office that had become more frequent. The emergency business trips to Atlanta on weekends. The way he guarded his phone, angling it away from her when he texted. The vague, evasive answers when she asked about his day. The scent of a woman's perfume, faintly floral, not her own Chanel No. 5 on his suit jacket 2 weeks ago, which he'd explained away as probably from a client. You know how they are. She had trusted him implicitly. Their love story was the stuff of legends among their friends, college sweethearts, who had built a life together from nothing. He was Mark, her Mark. He wasn't a liar, he wasn't a cheat. Was he? Her feet carried her, as if on autopilot, to his home office. The room was a sanctuary of masculinity, all dark wood leather, and the faint scent of his expensive Tom Ford cologne. It felt like a violation to be in here without him. But she was past caring about boundaries. Boundaries had already been incinerated. She sat in his expensive leather chair, the one that molded perfectly to his body, and turned on his desktop computer. It was password protected, of course. She tried their anniversary. Access denied. She tried her birthday. Access denied. She tried the name of their golden retriever Cooper, who had passed away 2 years ago. Access denied. A wave of frustration washed over her. He had locked her out of his digital life, just as he was locking her out of his real one. But then she remembered the shared credit card account. They had one for household expenses. With trembling fingers, she logged into the bank's website. She scrolled through the recent transactions, her heart pounding in her ears. Groceries, from Harris Teeter Gas, from Shell, a payment to the utility company. It all looked normal. Then her eyes snagged on a charge from last month. Little Sprouts Toy Boutique. $154,121. She frowned. They didn't have any children in their lives to buy that many toys for. She scrolled further back. Another charge from 3 months ago. Peak Kids, $250. A children's clothing store. Her blood ran cold. She changed her search parameters, looking for recurring payments. And then she saw it. A monthly charge. $1,500. The description was vague. Oakwood Properties Management. She didn't recognize the name. They owned their home outright, a gift from her parents when they got married. They had no other properties. She clicked on the transaction details. It was a recurring payment going back nearly 3 years. 3 years. The timeline sent a fresh wave of nausea through her. They had been trying for a baby for 2 of those years. All that time, while she was charting her ovulation, taking her temperature, crying over negative pregnancy tests, he was paying for… What? A secret apartment. Her mind raced. Where was Oakwood Properties? A quick Google search revealed they managed several apartment buildings in Charlotte, but one stood out. The Magnolia, a luxury complex in the Myers Park neighborhood, one of the most affluent areas in the city. It was only a 20-minute drive from their house. The pieces were starting to click into place, forming a picture she didn't want to see. The late nights, the weekend trips that were probably never trips at all. He had another life, a whole other home, just across town. But even that didn't explain the cruelty of his words. My real family. It implied more than just a mistress in a secret apartment. The word family gnawed at her. Her eyes scanned the office, searching for anything else out of place. His briefcase was gone, but he had a habit of emptying his pockets onto a small valet tray on the desk when he got home. She sifted through the contents, loose change, a few crumpled receipts, a stray cufflink. Underneath a receipt from a gas station, she found it. A small, sleek second phone. It wasn't his work phone or his personal iPhone. This was something else entirely, a cheap-looking Android, a burner phone. Her breath hitched. This was it, the key to the secret life he had been so meticulously hiding. She pressed the power button, praying it wouldn't have a passcode. It lit up no lock screen. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the home screen appeared. There were only a few apps, phone messages, photos, contacts. She clicked on the contacts list. It was short. Mike S., his best friend. Mum, Dad, and one other entry that made the air leave her lungs in a painful rush. The contact was simply named Home. Her thumb shook as she tapped on the name, opening the message thread. It was a long history of texts, mundane and domestic. Her "Don't forget milk, on your way over," and "Leo needs new crayons for his project." Him on it. Be there around 7. Her, "The girls are asking for a bedtime story from Daddy tonight. Don't be too late." Him, "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Girls, Leo. Daddy. Sarah tapped on the photo gallery, her vision blurring with tears. There were pictures. So many pictures. A little boy with Mark's dark hair and mischievous grin holding up a finger painting. A younger girl with bright, curious eyes and blonde pigtails sitting on Mark's lap. There were videos of a birthday party with a "Happy 4th Birthday Leo" banner in the background. Mark was there lighting the candles on a superhero-themed cake. And then the most recent photo, sent just last night. It was a selfie. Mark was in it, beaming a genuine, unguarded smile she hadn't seen on his face in years. His arm was wrapped around a woman with long blonde hair, her head resting on his shoulder. And nestled between them were the 2 children, the boy and the girl. They were a perfect, happy family. The woman was beautiful, and Sarah knew her. Jessica Peterson. She worked in the marketing department at Mark's firm. Sarah had met her a few times at company Christmas parties. She had been perfectly pleasant, complimenting Sarah on her dress, asking about their holiday plans. A viper hiding in plain sight. Sarah stared at the photo, the smiling faces mocking her. The breakfast she had made wasn't for Mark and his mistress. It was for Mark, his mistress, and their children. He had a son named Leo. He had a daughter, Amelia, she learned from a text message. A whole family. His real family. The carefully constructed dam of her composure didn't just break, it exploded. A raw, animalistic scream tore from her throat, a sound of pure agony and rage. She hurled the burner phone across the room, and it shattered against the wall, the screen, spiderwebbing into 1,000 tiny pieces, just like her life. She collapsed into his chair, the leather sticking to her cold skin. The shock was gone. The denial was gone. The hurt, while still immense, was being rapidly consumed by a new emotion, an emotion so powerful it burned away her tears' fury. A cold, crystalline rage settled deep in her bones. He hadn't just cheated on her, he had betrayed her in the most profound way imaginable. He had built a life with her based on a foundation of lies. He had let her inject herself with hormones, endure invasive procedures, and cry in his arms over their shared struggle with infertility, all while he had 2 children with another woman. He had made her feel broken and inadequate while he was playing the role of the perfect father and partner just a few miles away. And now she was pregnant with his child, a child he clearly didn't consider part of his real family. Something inside Sarah shifted. The heartbroken wife was gone, replaced by a mother. A protective primal instinct roared to life within her. This wasn't just about her pain anymore. This was about her baby. This was about the life she was carrying, a life that deserved a father who wasn't a monster, a life that deserved better than to be the forgotten secret of a man living a double life. She took a deep, steadying breath, wiping the last of her tears away with the back of her hand. Her eyes, now hard and resolute, swept across the office, the room that represented his power and his betrayal. He thought he had all the control. He thought he could discard her and their unborn child like a piece of trash. He was wrong. He had underestimated her. He had mistaken her kindness for weakness. He had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The war was just beginning, and she had every intention of winning. The fury did not cool. It solidified. It settled in her chest, a heavy, cold weight that extinguished the frantic panic and replaced it with an icy resolve. The tears were gone. The screaming was over. Sarah looked around the opulent office, a room she had helped design, and saw it for what it was, the headquarters of a liar. Her first move was methodical. She went to the wall where the burner phone had shattered. Using a pair of tweezers from her makeup bag, she carefully picked up the larger pieces of the phone, her mind surprisingly clear. The SIM card. She needed the SIM card. It might be damaged, but it was evidence. She found it, a tiny gleaming chip amidst the black plastic shards, and carefully placed it inside a small Ziploc bag from the kitchen. Next, she returned to the computer. She couldn't access his desktop, but the bank website was still open. She began to print, page after page of credit card statements going back 3 years. She highlighted every recurring payment to Oakwood Properties Management, every charge from a toy store or children's clothing boutique. She printed statements from their joint savings, their checking account, his investment portfolio summary, anything she had access to. The printer hummed, spitting out a paper trail of their shared life, a life she now realized was only half the story. As she worked, a chilling thought occurred to her. Mark was an investment banker. He knew how to hide money. What she was seeing was likely only the surface, the careless crumbs he'd let fall within her reach. With a stack of documents piled neatly on the desk, she knew she couldn't do this alone. She needed an ally. Not her parents, not yet. The news would devastate them, and their worry would only weaken her resolve. She needed someone who could match her fury, someone who could be her tactical advisor. She dialed the number of her best friend, Chloe. Chloe was a force of nature, an investigative journalist for the Charlotte Observer who had a bloodhound's nose for deceit and zero tolerance for nonsense. She answered on the second ring. "Sarah Bear, what's up? Don't tell me you're calling to cancel brunch again because of morning sickness. I'm dying for a mimosa and some gossip." Sarah's voice came out as a croak. "Chloe." The cheerful tone on the other end of the line vanished instantly. "What's wrong? What happened? Are you okay? Is it the baby? Can you come over? Something's happened. I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, Chloe burst through the door, finding Sarah in the office, surrounded by stacks of paper. Chloe took one look at her friend's face and the mountain of evidence and said, "Oh, hell no." Sarah told her everything, her voice eerily calm, as she recounted the morning's events, the breakfast, the cold dismissal, the burner phone, the photos of Jessica, and the children whose names she now knew were Leo and Amelia. Chloe listened in stunned silence, her face growing progressively thunderous. When Sarah finished, Chloe didn't offer platitudes or hugs. She slammed her fist on the desk, rattling the neat piles of paper. That son of a bitch, she seethed, her eyes blazing. That absolute, unequivocal, pathologically lying son of a bitch. A whole other family for 3 years while you were going through IVF. Oh, he is going to burn. I am going to write an expose that will have him fired, disbarred, and publicly flogged. I don't want him flogged, Sarah said, her voice like steel. I want him ruined. I want to take everything from him. For me and for this baby. Chloe's furious expression softened into one of fierce pride. She looked at her friend, truly looked at her, and saw not a victim, but a general preparing for war. Okay, she said, her voice low and serious. Okay, General. What's our first move? I need a lawyer, Sarah said. Not just any lawyer. I need a shark, the kind that makes men like Mark weep in depositions. Chloe was already typing furiously on her phone. I know a guy who knows a guy, but the best in Charlotte for high-asset, high-conflict divorce is a woman. Laura Vance. They call her the Black Widow because she buries husbands financially. She's expensive. And she's ruthless. Perfect, Sarah said. Get me her number. An hour later, Sarah was on the phone with Laura Vance. She explained the situation in the same clipped, precise tones she had used with Chloe. Laura didn't interrupt. She let Sarah lay out the entire sordid tale. When she was done, there was a pause on the line. Then Laura's voice, crisp and businesslike, came through. Mrs. Landon, first of all, I am very sorry for what you are going through. Second, do not, under any circumstances, let your husband know that you know. Do not confront him. Do not text him. Do not call him. If he contacts you, you are tired. You have a headache. You're not feeling well. You are the fragile, pregnant wife. Got it. Got it, Sarah replied. Good. Because right now, you have the element of surprise. He thinks you're a crumpled mess on the kitchen floor. We are going to use that. He is a high-level executive at a major financial institution. Public image is everything. A secret family. Children with a subordinate. This isn't just a divorce. This is a nuke to his entire career. We have leverage, but only if we play this smart. Laura continued, giving Sarah a list of instructions. Secure all the documents she had. Start moving liquid assets, half of whatever is in your joint accounts, into a new account in your name only immediately. Find tax returns, deeds, any information on offshore accounts or private investments. And most importantly, find out who else knew. The conspiracy is often more damaging than the affair itself, Laura explained. His best friend, Mike. Did he know? And what about his parents? You mentioned their names were in the burner phone contacts. The question hit Sarah like a physical blow. Eleanor and Robert Landon. They had always been so kind to her, treating her like the daughter they never had. They had been so overjoyed when she told them she was pregnant. Was it all an act? I don't know, Sarah stammered. You need to find out, Laura said firmly. Their complicity could be a key factor in our strategy. But be careful how you approach it. After the call, Sarah sat in the silence of the office, the lawyer's words echoing in her ears. Find out who else knew. The betrayal was a hydra, and she needed to know how many heads it had. She picked up her phone. Her thumb hovered over her mother-in-law's contact photo, a smiling, kindly-looking woman with Mark's blue eyes. If Eleanor knew, if she had been celebrating Sarah's pregnancy while knowing her son had 2 other children, it was a level of deceit Sarah could barely comprehend. It would mean her entire marriage, her entire relationship with his family, was a sham. She took a breath, steeling her nerves. She couldn't ask directly. She had to be clever. She had to play the part Laura Vance had assigned her, the confused, slightly worried wife. Her finger pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice. "Sarah, dear." "What a lovely surprise," Eleanor's cheerful voice chirped. "I was just thinking about you and my grandbaby. How are you feeling?" The warmth in her voice was so genuine, it almost broke Sarah's resolve. Almost. "I'm okay, Eleanor," Sarah began, carefully pitching her voice to sound weary and a little lost. Just a little confused, I guess. "Mark was acting so strangely this morning." "Oh, how so? Is everything all right?" There was a subtle shift in Eleanor's tone, a new alertness. "Well, I made him a big breakfast to celebrate the second trimester, and he just packed it all up to go," Sarah said, letting her voice tremble just a little. "He said the strangest thing. He said he was taking it to his real family." She let the words hang in the air, a baited hook. She held her breath, listening intently, every fiber of her being focused on the response. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a beat too long. Then Eleanor laughed, a laugh that was just a little too loud, a little too forced. "Oh, Sarah, you silly girl. His real family, you know how he jokes. He must have meant us. He was probably planning on dropping it by the house on his way to work. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, it was almost perfect. But Sarah heard it. The fractional hesitation before the laugh. The carefully chosen dismissive words. The way she didn't ask a single follow-up question about why her son would say something so cruel. In that moment, Sarah knew. Eleanor knew. She had known all along. A fresh wave of cold fury washed over Sarah, more potent than anything she had felt before. The betrayal wasn't just Mark's. It was a family conspiracy. They had all been laughing at her. "Oh," Sarah said, her own voice now smooth as glass. "Of course. How silly of me." "You're right." She paused, then delivered her counterstrike, a single devastating sentence. "Well, I'm glad to hear it, because for a second I thought he meant Jessica Peterson and their two children, Leo and Amelia." Dead silence. The line went completely, utterly still. Sarah could hear the frantic, panicked beat of her own heart, but from the other end there was nothing. Not a breath, not a sound. Then a sharp intake of breath, quickly stifled. "I don't know what you're talking about," Eleanor finally whispered, her voice tight and venomous. The cheerful grandmother persona stripped away to reveal the cold accomplice beneath. "I think you do," Sarah said, her voice equally quiet but lethal. "And soon everyone will." She hung up the phone, her hand steady. She had just detonated the first bomb, and the war had officially begun. The silence in the house was different now. It was no longer the silence of shock, but the charged stillness before a battle. Sarah knew her call to Eleanor had lit a fuse. It was only a matter of time before the explosion reached her doorstep. Chloe, ever the pragmatist, had insisted on staying. "No way are you facing that slime ball alone," she'd said, making a pot of strong coffee and setting up a makeshift command center at the kitchen island, her laptop open, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm doing a deep dive on Jessica Peterson and the Landons. Let's see what skeletons we can rattle." It took less than an hour. At 5:47 p.m., Mark's car, a sleek black Audi, screeched into the driveway. The front door burst open. He wasn't the calm, composed man who had left that morning. His tie was loosened, his hair was disheveled, and his face was a mask of fury and panic. "What did you do?" he roared, storming into the kitchen. He stopped short when he saw Chloe sitting there, her expression coolly defiant. "What is she doing here?" "I'm moral support," Chloe said, taking a slow sip of her coffee. Looks like you could use some, or maybe a lawyer. Sarah stood up from the island, her hands resting protectively on her stomach. She had spent the afternoon preparing for this moment, rehearsing with Chloe, steeling herself. She would not cry. She would not scream. She would be ice. "You got a call from your mother?" "I take it," Sarah said, her voice even. "You had no right to upset her." He shot back, his voice quivering with rage. "She's an old woman. You call her spewing insane accusations." "Insane?" Sarah interrupted, taking a step forward. "Is Leo insane? Is Amelia insane? Are the 3 years of rent payments to Oakwood Properties insane? Are you going to stand there, in the home we built together, and tell me your other family is an insane accusation?" Mark's face went white. He stared at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. He had clearly expected hysterics tears, a scene he could manage and dismiss. He hadn't expected cold, hard facts. "Sarah, listen," he began, his tone shifting from rage to desperate placation. "It's not what you think. It's complicated. Complicated is when you can't decide between 2 paint colors." "Mark," Sarah said, her voice dripping with contempt, "complicated is not a secret family you've been hiding for 3 years while your wife is undergoing fertility treatments. That's not complicated. That's monstrous." "I was going to tell you," he said, taking a step towards her. "After the baby was born. I didn't want to stress you out." The excuse was so pathetic, so transparently self-serving, that a laugh escaped Sarah's lips. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "Stress me out? You didn't want to stress me out. You let me believe I was broken, Mark. You held me while I cried over every negative test. You let me inject my body with hormones and go through painful procedures, all while knowing you had 2 perfect children just across town. You didn't want to stress me out, or you just didn't want to mess up your comfortable little arrangement." "It wasn't like that," he stammered, running a hand through his hair. "Jessica, it just happened. And then she got pregnant and I wanted to do the right thing by my son." "And what about this child?" Sarah demanded, her voice rising for the first time. "The one I'm carrying. What's the right thing for this one? To be a dirty little secret? To not even be considered part of your real family?" He flinched as she threw his own words back at him. "That's not what I meant." "Oh, I think it's exactly what you meant," she said. She walked over to the counter and picked up a single sheet of paper from the stack she had printed. It was the bank statement showing the first payment to Oakwood Properties. She held it up. "This is what you meant. This is the truth. This is where your priorities have been for the last 3 years." He stared at the paper, then at her face. The panic in his eyes was giving way to a cold calculation. He was realizing she had more. This wasn't just a suspicion, it was a documented case. "What do you want, Sarah?" he asked, his voice low. "What do I want?" she repeated. "That's a good question. I'll have my lawyer send you a list." The word lawyer hung in the air. His eyes widened. This was moving faster than he could control. "Don't be ridiculous," he scoffed, trying to regain his footing. "We can work this out. We don't need lawyers." "Oh, I think we do," Chloe piped up from the island. "And Sarah's got a great one, Laura Vance. Ever heard of her?" Sarah watched with grim satisfaction as the last bit of color drained from Mark's face. He knew the name. Everyone in his world knew the name. "You can't do this, Sarah," he whispered, his voice pleading now. "My job, my reputation, this will destroy me. You should have thought of that before you decided to play house with your co-worker," Sarah said coldly. "Now I think you should leave. I believe your real family is waiting for you." She pointed to the door. For a long moment he just stood there, his world crumbling around him. He looked from Sarah's unyielding face to Chloe's smug one. He was cornered, and he knew it. Without another word, he turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. The moment he was gone, Sarah's knees buckled. Chloe was there in an instant, wrapping her arms around her. The icy composure melted, and the sobs she had been holding back all day finally came raw and agonizing. She wasn't just crying for the man she had lost, but for the woman she had been, the trusting, naive woman who had believed in their perfect life. That woman was gone forever. The days that followed were a blur of strategy sessions and painful discoveries. Laura Vance was every bit the shark Chloe had promised. She filed a motion to freeze all their assets, and her team, which included a forensic accountant, immediately began the process of untangling Mark's finances. "Men like your husband think they're smarter than everyone," Laura told Sarah during a call. "They get arrogant, they leave trails. Our job is to find them." Chloe, meanwhile, put her journalistic skills to work. She uncovered Jessica Peterson's private social media accounts through a friend of a friend. The profiles were a nauseating shrine to her life with Mark. There were pictures of him at school plays for Leo, pushing Amelia on a swing at the park, carving a Thanksgiving turkey in their tastefully decorated apartment. He was tagged as the best daddy and partner a girl could ask for. In one post from 2 years ago, Jessica gushed about a surprise trip to Paris he had taken her on the same weekend. Mark had told Sarah he was at a banking conference in Chicago. The lies were interwoven so deeply into the fabric of their marriage that Sarah felt she was suffocating. One of the most painful discoveries was the extent of the conspiracy. As Laura had predicted, it wasn't just Mark. Sarah, on Laura's advice, decided to confront Mark's best friend, Mike. She invited him for coffee under the pretense of wanting to talk about Mark. Mike arrived at the coffee shop looking nervous. He had been Mark's best man at their wedding. He and his wife Karen had been their closest couple friends. "Sarah, I was so sorry to hear you and Mark are having problems." He began wringing his hands. "Problems? Is that what he's calling it?" Sarah asked, her voice calm. "Mike, I'm going to be direct. I know about Jessica and Leo and Amelia." Mike's face crumpled. He couldn't meet her eyes. "Sarah, I told him he had to tell you. For years, I told him." "But you didn't tell me, did you?" Sarah pressed. "You stood up at our wedding and gave a speech about honor and friendship. You came to our house for dinner parties. You looked me in the eye, knowing your best friend was living a double life. You let me talk to your wife about my struggles with IVF, knowing he already had a child. How could you?" "It wasn't my place," he mumbled, staring into his cup. "Wasn't your place?" Sarah's voice was laced with disbelief. "You made it your place when you chose to protect him instead of telling me the truth. You are just as guilty as he is." She stood up and left him there, the friendship dissolving into the bitter dregs of his coffee. Every new betrayal felt like another layer of her life being peeled away, leaving her raw and exposed. She decided to make one more trip, the hardest of all. She drove to the Magnolia, the apartment complex in Myers Park. She didn't have a plan. She just needed to see it. It was a beautiful upscale building with manicured gardens and a sparkling fountain out front. As she sat in her car across the street, she saw them. Jessica was coming out of the front entrance, holding Amelia's hand. Leo was trailing behind, kicking at a stray leaf on the sidewalk. And then Mark came out, holding a bag of groceries. He leaned down and kissed Jessica a casual, domestic peck on the lips. He then ruffled Leo's hair, and the boy looked up at him with pure adoration. Sarah's heart constricted. It was a perfect picture of family life. It was everything she had ever wanted. And it was all a lie. built on the foundations of her pain. But seeing the reality of it, didn't break her. It hardened her. She watched until they were gone, then put the car in drive and pulled away. She had seen the enemy's stronghold. Now it was time to tear it down. That night, she got a call from an unknown number. It was Jessica. "I think you and I need to talk," Jessica said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Without the lawyers, without Mark, just us." Sarah agreed to meet Jessica at a neutral location, a quiet corner of Freedom Park. She arrived early, choosing a bench that gave her a clear view of the approach. She didn't know what to expect. A screaming match, threats, tears. When Jessica arrived, she looked different from the polished woman in the photos. She was pale, with dark circles under her eyes. The confidence was gone, replaced by a raw vulnerability that mirrored Sarah's own. "Thank you for meeting me," Jessica said, sitting at the other end of the bench. "I'm not here to be friends," Sarah stated flatly. "I know," Jessica replied, her voice quiet. "I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness. I'm here because I'm a fool. And because he's a monster." Sarah stared at her, surprised. "What do you mean?" Jessica took a shaky breath. "He told me you two were separated. He said the divorce was just a formality, held up by legal wrangling over assets. He told me you knew about us, that you were fine with it, that you were moving on with your own life." The lie was so audacious, so complete, that Sarah could only shake her head in disbelief. "And you believed him?" "I wanted to," Jessica whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I loved him. He was charming, attentive. He promised me the world. He said, once his bonus came through this year, he would finally be free of you and we could get married. He told me you couldn't have children, that it had destroyed your marriage. He said he wanted to build a real family with me. He used the same phrase on me," Sarah said bitterly. "The morning he left, he told me he was taking the breakfast I made to his real family." Jessica flinched. "He came to the apartment that morning with all that food. He told me he had cooked it all for us. He's a parasite, Sarah. He feeds off of us, our love, our work, and he gives nothing but lies in return." Jessica explained that Mark controlled her completely. He paid for the apartment and all the bills, but her name wasn't on the lease. He gave her a cash allowance, so there was no paper trail. He had isolated her from her own family, telling them he needed to keep their relationship quiet for a while because of his vicious, unstable ex-wife. "And then a few days ago, he came to me in a panic," Jessica continued. "He said you had found out everything and that you were trying to destroy him. He told me I had to lie, that I had to say I seduced him, that I blackmailed him. He wanted me to take the fall to save his career." In that moment, sitting on a park bench with her husband's mistress, Sarah's fury shifted. Mark wasn't just a cheater. He was a master manipulator who had expertly played two women against each other. He had built two separate worlds, and now that they were colliding, he was trying to sacrifice one to save the other. "He has another bank account," Jessica said, her voice low. "An offshore one, in the Cayman Islands. I saw the statements once when he left his briefcase open. I don't know the details, but I know the bank's name, Sterling Global Trust. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the smoking gun." "Why are you telling me this?" Sarah asked, genuinely curious. "Because he threatened to take my children," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "He said if I didn't play along, he would prove I was an unfit mother and get sole custody. He said he has the money and the power, and I have nothing. He's right. But you have a legal standing. You're his wife. You can get him." She looked at Sarah, her eyes pleading. "I don't care about the money. I just want him out of my life, and I want to keep my children safe. Help me, Sarah, and I'll help you burn him to the ground." It was a devil's bargain, an alliance born of mutual betrayal. But Sarah knew it was her only move. Two women, scorned by the same man, were infinitely more powerful than one. "Okay, Jessica," Sarah said, a new, steely resolve in her voice. "Tell me everything." Armed with the name of the offshore bank, Laura Vance and her forensic accountant moved with lightning speed. They obtained a court order that forced Sterling Global Trust to turn over its records. What they found was staggering. Mark had squirreled away over $5 million in bonuses and hidden investments, a secret fortune he had built while his first wife was undergoing emotionally and financially draining medical treatments, and his second family was living on a cash allowance. The final settlement meeting was a formality. Mark sat opposite Sarah and Laura, a broken man. His firm had suspended him pending an internal investigation, which, thanks to an anonymous tip from Chloe, was now looking into his relationship with a subordinate and his financial misconduct. His parents, Eleanor and Robert, were facing social ostracism from their tight-knit community. Jessica, with the help of a pro bono lawyer Laura had found for her, had secured a restraining order and an ironclad custody agreement. The walls had completely closed in. Mark agreed to all of Sarah's terms. She got the house a majority of their declared assets and a significant portion of the offshore account. But more importantly, she got what she really wanted: a legal document signed by him, acknowledging his paternity of her unborn child and setting up a trust for the baby's future. He had to face the truth in black and white. He looked at her across the polished mahogany table, his eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and defeat. "Are you happy now?" he whispered. "You've destroyed me." Sarah looked at him, at the man she had once loved more than life itself, and felt nothing. Not hatred, not pity, not even satisfaction. Just a vast empty space where her love used to be. "You destroyed yourself, Mark," she said quietly. "I just turned on the lights." 6 months later, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Hope. She sold the big house in the suburbs, the one filled with too many ghosts, and bought a smaller, sun-filled townhouse in the city closer to Chloe. She used the settlement money to go back to school, finishing the art history degree she had abandoned to support Mark's career. Her life wasn't the perfect, elegant picture she had once imagined. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes incredibly difficult. But it was real, and it was hers. One afternoon, as she sat in her small garden, rocking her daughter to sleep, she thought about the breakfast that had shattered her world. It felt like a lifetime ago. The woman who had so carefully arranged those pancakes and bacon was a stranger to her now. That woman had believed her happiness depended on a man. The woman she had become, the woman forged in the fires of betrayal, knew that true happiness, true strength, came from within. She looked down at the tiny, perfect face of her daughter sleeping peacefully in her arms. This was her family, her real family. And as she leaned down and kissed Hope's forehead, Sarah knew with absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. Mark thought he could walk away, leaving Sarah and their unborn child in the ruins of his lies, but he underestimated the fire he had ignited. This is no longer just a story of heartbreak. It's a story of a woman's transformation from a victim to a warrior, and the unexpected alliance that brought a powerful man to his knees. The battle for justice has been won, but a new life is just beginning. Sarah's story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, we have the strength to rebuild, to find our own truth, and to create our own real family. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you were moved by Sarah's story, please like this video, share it with someone who loves a good drama, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. What did you think of the final twist? Let us know in the comments below.